Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. And if you could subscribe to the show, that would be awesome. You can do that just by hitting subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You know, the Keys to the Shop tagline and all of this stuff you just heard, the tools and insights and inspiration for professionals in service. So that means if you're a trainer, a manager, assistant manager, owner, GM, you have some kind of authority that allows you to make decisions that will either help other people or it will influence the business. This show is designed specifically for those of you, and honestly, it's everybody. Everybody has some influence. How do you use that influence to achieve something better for those around you, for your community, for yourself, for coffee? That's what we do at the show. So we've been doing this for a while. But we have 1,000 episodes, more than 1,000 episodes, and it just is the tip of the iceberg. But what I want to drive home here is that applying what you hear is always the best thing. Having a step towards that or figuring out how to do that sometimes is just the work of a conversation. And working with a coach or consultant is one of the ways that you can do that. Keys to the Shop offers consulting and coaching for coffee shop owners and also for managers. I've worked with one-on-one with managers in the past, also with teams of people. And just as long as Keys to the Shop has been around, we've been offering consulting and coaching. So in the new year, if you're looking to partner up with somebody to help walk alongside you, provide you guidance, take some of these concepts and really apply them in the daily work of your business and your career, that is a great thing to do, is just reach out. There's a link in the show notes for a discovery call. Let's just get on the phone. Let's talk on Zoom and see what happens. Maybe working with Keys to the Shop consulting is the right thing for you. And today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Arto Brick and also at the Barista series from Pacific. Those are two great companies. We're going to hear more about them later in the episode. But this episode in particular is about mindsets, and it's about habits that leaders in the coffee shop need to desperately hang on to and maintain. These are things that we forget about until it's too late. It's like what they say, when you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. I'm not sure how true that is. However, I know that there are a lot of leaders out there that are just a few just decisions away from burnout. They're just a few yeses away that didn't need to be yeses, to take on more than they need to take on. They're not taking care of themselves as well as they could be. They're not being taken care of as well as they could be. And you might be one of these people unintentionally not taking care of those you are tasked with serving, or you're not taking care of yourself, etc. Or you might be on the receiving end of somebody who's just way too busy to give you substantive direction in your work. And so you have now the task of being your own boss, where you actually technically have a boss, but really you've got to manage them too. And you've got to manage your staff. It's kind of a hard position to be in. And even more so in that position, clarity is absolutely a lifeline. And so you got to fight for having the right mindsets and the right frameworks to allow you some kind of clarity, because everything else that vies for your attention doesn't actually really care whether you have clarity or not. It wants what it wants. The work is going to do what it does. It's going to require your time, your energy. At the end of the day, you'll still have that list of stuff that you have to do, but the fire you fought will have been put out. But you're left with this idea of, how am I supposed to get ahead? I keep on pushing this thing off to the next day, the next day. And this is why we're going to talk about mindsets today, because 2026, every new year that comes around, we have some kind of an aspiration of, okay, 2025, not my best year. And it may be every year is not our best year. How do you even judge those? But you go into the new year and you think, okay, this is going to be different. The only way for the new year to be different is if you do something different. And I'm only going to talk about 4 things today. Now, leadership is one of the main themes of Keys to the Shop. That's why we had this big preamble before we got into the topic. But you can look up leadership and management episodes. You're going to come up with dozens and dozens of these. It is worth listening to them. Now, I don't say that you should go take 12, 16 hours of your life and go listen to Keys to the Shop in a cave out in the wilderness and come back a changed person. No, I would not want you to sacrifice your sanity like that. I could barely stand to listen to my own voice that long. So I think it's really important for you, though, to take what you hear and say, how can I take that and thoroughly apply it in service of becoming a different version of myself, or at least a better version of myself? Do something different if I want it to be different, right? So in the new year, if you think about things that you want to employ, I'm going to tell you 4 mindsets that you need to think of including in that list of different behaviors and goals that you have for the new year that'll help you be a better boss and help you navigate the emotional weight of being a leader in a coffee shop where there's a menu and we kind of know what people are going to order, but there's still just enough ambiguity and there's just enough unknowns around the known possibilities that it's like a new combination of challenge that we already knew was going to happen, but every combination seems to be geared to challenge us in a new way. So yeah, it's an assembly of like baked goods and sandwiches and lattes, but sometimes the way that those combinations hit challenges us in ways that we feel like it just hit us at the wrong week because we're dealing with something personal, some interstaff conflict, or you didn't get much sleep last night. So there's all sorts of different combinations of these known challenges that even though we know about them, they still threaten to create in us this defeat. And I've felt this many times in my own career where, I knew I wanted to be in coffee. I still know I want to be in coffee. That's why I'm still here. But the ebb and the flow, the ups and the downs, those were a lot of crisis moments in my career. And what really helped me the most is an ability that was learned over time from many seasons of legit burnout, panic attacks, like debilitating anxiety and panic attacks in my mid 20s. Lots of things that are just like internal fights with the outside, between me and the outside world. The reconciliation between what is and what I want it to be, and the balance between those things. This is a tough. This is the work. This is what work does, I think. It's not just coffee, it's just work in general. It is a crucible and it kind of purifies us in a way, but we're the ones who are in charge of that refinement process. Oftentimes it's how we respond to the challenges that makes us who we end up being. It's very much like the book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning, where he kind of talks about that, which is the idea of you are going to construct your worldview based on how you respond to the stimuli that comes to you. Like your response is your decision. And as I get older, I think, okay, I can and I will and I want to be more in charge of how I approach the things that I know are going to challenge me. All I can control is who I am. And that's the best thing I can do to help other people, is for them to be able to know that I'm working on the way that I work. If I'm working on the way that I work, because they count on me as, if I'm a boss, they need me to be a great boss. They don't need me to aspire to be a great boss and then not be a good boss. They just need me to actually be that thing. And I need to work on how I work in such a way that I can see progress in that. So this is very serious stuff. And you can run and get milk last minute. You can take shifts and heroically do lots of doubles. And you can do all of the stuff that a lot of well meaning managers and owners do to try to prove yourself in the hustle of it all. But what's actually going to make the biggest difference is working on the way you work and show up in the most critical areas. So there's 4 things I want to cover with you today. So starting with number 1, patience and long-term focus. Patience and long-term focus. So if you can practice patience with the process of something growing with yourself or with others or with the business that you have right now and the development, it might not look what you want it to look like right now, but it will eventually. Okay. And you have to constantly think to yourself, okay, am I willing to allow this to be something that develops well, even if it's not on the timing that I feel comfortable with? I still will be patient with it within a degree of reason. You can't just be patient, be like, yeah, we haven't been profitable for 5 years, so I'm just being patient. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not patience. That's different, right? What I'm talking about is the attitude we bring to how we look at our circumstances. We're still working on the solutions, but we're not working in such a way where we only have one immediate and narrow outcome that we will accept, or else nothing else works. We've got to be open to what it looks like to have a long term sustainable business and patiently allow things to develop without rushing, without being rash. And in order to do that, patience, I think, is also based on a study of your current circumstance and a study of history. If you can take Founder Friday episodes, for example, and other stories you might hear about from podcasts such as How I Built This or various stories of entrepreneurs. One of the things hopefully you'll hear is that things don't always go the way you want, but they'll go the way you need them to if you show up in the way that you need to show up with patience and almost like a curiosity about what this unique thing that you brought to life needs. It is kind of like a child in many ways. You could read all the books you want about being a parent, but it's not going to prepare you 100% to be a parent to that particular child. The only way that that will work is if you are willing to set the facts aside and look at the truth of the situation here. Like, the fact is, this kid, like from my son, for example, he has a very particular way of speaking, thinking, communicating. And if I'm not studying that, then I'm going to be very impatient that he's not conforming to the normative things that I think that a 11-year-old boy should be doing right now. And your business might be 2 years old, and you think, oh, well, they say at the 2 year mark I should be here and I'm not there, and therefore I need to do this and that. And every opportunity is an opportunity for me to conform my business to the standards of the industry. Well, that's not being patient. It's certainly not being responsible with the very thing that everybody else in that business is counting on. So if you're going to make a rash decision, be it based on impatience in a comparison to a generality or a trend, then what's happening is you are being reckless. So the opposite of patience may be impatience, but I think impatience is, kind of a precursor to recklessness. And so if you have a long-term focus, you're going to ask the question, unto what? I'm going to make this decision about our menu, but how does this benefit our business long term? I'm going to communicate this way to my staff today when I walk in, but how does that contribute to the long-term success of my business? A lot of decisions we make in the heat of the moment are made without thinking long term. They're only about immediate gratification, according to a standard that may not have the long term in mind, and a standard that might not be beneficial to what you have in front of you. Patience is a virtue, and that's the old saying. And in your cafe, if you can be patient, you can keep your cool. If you can keep your cool, you can make better decisions. If you can make better decisions, you'll end up with a better business. See how this works. Just like workflow, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I'm not saying you are supposed to be lazy. You're still supposed to be decisive. To put off a decision indefinitely is not patience, it's negligence, right? That's why I said at the beginning it's not the same as, oh, we haven't been profitable for 6 years. Well, that's a huge problem, right? So I think going into the new year, how can you practice patience? How can you become a patient person? If you're an impatient person, you want to practice patience, it might not, might need to do some deeper work here, right? Because who you are shows up at work, and the facade wears off over time. So that's a big challenge, but it's a worthy pursuit. It is something that you need to have at the core of your practice. Being a leader is a craft. The operations depend on you showing up and working on how you work. So let's talk about the next thing, which is regular reflection and accountability. So it kind of goes in sequence. Regular reflection gives you a sort of compass to say, I am here. Regular reflection allows you to see your business in both the small facets and the larger picture. And so you have a 360-degree view of everything happening in your business only if you take the time to view it. That's the same thing for you. That's why we have accountability, where you do 360 reviews, or you talk with people often enough and solicit their feedback often enough that they believe that you actually do want to know, how am I doing as a boss? I've mentioned this before. A long time ago, somebody said I should never ask a customer what they thought of the coffee because they're not coffee professionals. They're not trained. This was a response to a blog post I put up like 15 years ago or something like that. And it was so, I was like, oh, that seems so bizarre. I don't even have a place in my mind that registers why that would even be a legitimate way to think about it. I want the customer to be happy about what they're drinking. They don't need to be trained in coffee to know if they like it or not. And also, a barista does not need to have been an owner of a coffee shop or a manager to know that they like or don't like the management. Okay. They don't need to have deep knowledge of profit and loss statements and the entrepreneurial culture and all that stuff to have a legitimate opinion and piece of feedback to give you that'll help you be better at those things. You do and you should want to know what they think and feel, because what they think and feel determines what they do and how they do it. And if, as a leader, you're supposed to be leading people to do something, then this is essentially the same as dialing in an espresso, but never tasting it. So it shows up for a shift. The barista shows up for the shift. They do the thing technically, but do we know that recipe, even though it yields the numbers, is experienced in a way that's pleasant? See, this is the same thing. So you need to get accountability amongst your peers in leadership. You need to get accountability from those people you serve in your leadership role from the bottom up. These are the baristas, manager. If you're an owner, it's like the manager, the GM, and that kind of thing. And you can never assume that no news is good news. You can't assume that, well, I have an open door policy, and so if people want to talk to me about something, they will. I trust them to do that. And if they don't, it's their fault. No, it's your fault. Because again, we talked about this in the last episode about, working, leading people well, caring for people, really caring for people. You have authority that warps space time, and what people should or could and all that do, they don't, because you are you, and you have a mantle of differentiation. And so you need to be the one to constantly bridge the gap, constantly bridge the gap. And so that's just the thing you're signing up for. And yeah, it's tempting to get online and gripe about this stuff. And, people don't know what it's like. That doesn't actually change anything, though. You could spend all next year, 2026, complaining about your situation and shaking your fist, howling at the moon. But really, the only difference that's going to be made is if you change. And then you will see a little bit more of a difference being made, right? So you have to have this regular reflection. I love the idea of bookmarking or bookending your day, rather, where in the morning you think about what's going to happen, at night you think about what happened and what's going to be for the next day. You create these meditative moments that are purposeful and structured and allow yourself to settle. I mean, in any kind of meditation practice, they talk about the idea that the stirring up of thoughts throughout the day is like the sediment in the water of a stream. If you just let it alone for a while, clarity comes. Clarity comes. So you've got to allow yourself reflection time, but you also have to allow reflection to come from other sources as well. That's the mirror that shows you the effectiveness of your actions. And one of the things that you have to also realize as a manager, as a leader of any kind, is that you are not going, it's not a one for one. I say, they do, it happens. Boy, that would be great. Well, I said it, they did it. Now everything's great. But it's just not, it doesn't happen. It's a lot like in archery where you have to aim at a different, technically, a different location. You have to account for the arc of the arrow in the way that you aim. So when you're aiming as a leader, you have to take into account the physics of it all. Here's a group of people whose the atmosphere and the physics of their minds is going to have to be traversed. Your words enter into their mind, and it's entering into a thick atmosphere of life and thoughts and emotions. And you can't. The only way to really predict where that arrow is going to land is by practicing and seeing and reflecting on and looking to what where did that land, how can I adjust where I aim so it lands better. That goes for your menu, how it lands with your customers. That goes for the baristas and how your words land with training, and so forth. So regular reflection and pursuing accountability, pursuing it, not just receiving it well when it comes, because a lot of times it just doesn't come at all. You actually have to pursue it. Hey everyone, it's Chris, and I wanted to talk to you about our friends at Arto Brick and the Barista series from Pacific. So arto.com, better yet, go to Instagram and look up their Instagram account at Arto Brick. Armin and his brother Vod run this place. Arto, their father, started it in Los Angeles in the 70s, making tile facade, built this business from the ground up, literally from the ground, because they they make everything from stones, from the earth to your cafe. And if you go to their website and you see the stuff that they create, it's amazing. If you have designs that you want to see on your bar, on your walls, on your countertops, and you want to work with a company that helps you create that, take it from idea to reality, then include Arto Brick in your next building project. Go to arto.com, but reach out to Armin, definitely DM at Arto Brick on Instagram. Now, also, we're sponsored today by the Pacific Barista series, the plant-based beverage leader by far worldwide, is the cornerstone of the industry for this product. The extensive lineup of their products is designed with a barista in mind, tested by world-class baristas so it performs on the bar the way you always want a plant-based beverage to perform, with excellence. So your customers get something amazingly balanced, tasty, texturally, it is top-notch. So go to pacificfoodservice.com. Try it out for yourself. They'll send you samples. And again, if you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your customers, check out the Barista series from Pacific. Now, there's two more things that I want to talk about. One of those two things is the mindset of having small, imperfect steps forward. Ages ago, there was an article I wrote for Fresh Cup called Higher Degrees of Imperfection. And, I can get philosophical about stuff. It's helpful to do that because how we live is based on our philosophy of life. And if you just think, look, it's all about perfection. Anything less than perfection is a failure. Well, then you're always going to be a failure. Sorry to say, you're always going to be a failure. And that's no way to live. That's not a way to inspire other people. That's a culture of like, you're never allowed to be happy. You're never allowed to revel in an achievement. Your team aren't allowed to because you're not, right? I'm not happy. You're not happy. Okay. So this is a toxic culture where we overemphasize some high standard because we feel it's the only way to motivate people is to have this impossibly high standard. However, if we replace this perfectionistic standard that we assume and replace it with higher degrees of imperfection, and that we are making progress is the thing we celebrate, we reinforce our identity as progress making people. And the standard that is needed, although imperfect, is a standard that fulfills the needs of people. People come to you in your coffee shop and they love your coffee. They love your lattes. I love that couch. Love, love, love. Okay. I feel like my wife's a big knitter and she listens to a lot of like YouTube videos on knitting. And I joke because they always talk about it, like every sixth word that they say is like, I really love this and I really love that about this. And the textures is something I really love. I'm just using this word because I think your customers, uh, they feel this about your cafe more than you think, but we feel we owe it to ourselves to be just miserable enough to achieve greatness. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense because we equate happiness with complacency. We equate joy with complacency. Well, maybe we need to stop doing that. Maybe imperfection but progress is a balanced way to be able to give yourself and your team permission to enjoy the journey, as they say. Maybe put that on your wall, from Hobby Lobby or whatever. The idea is, hey, I'm not perfect and you're not perfect, and this is not going to be perfect. But it is in the textural, the imperfections of a thing is the character of it. It is the reason why people do the stupid thing with furniture, which is called what is it? Antiquing? No, it's not antiquing. It's well, they basically put a false patina on it. They create, and somebody put it in the comments because I can't believe I can't draw this up right now. But they'll take chains and they'll hit it and they'll mark it up and make it look like it's been through a war. Now we have real antiques that have actually been used as medical tables, as carts and stuff. That has real life on it. That's not an imperfection. That's a feature. Now there's a difference between dysfunction and a patina. Okay, so I'm not saying be dirty or dysfunctional. However, it is not a contradiction to say we can pursue excellence and beauty and just excellence. That's a great way to just say excellence, but also not get so caught up in the ennui we feel of our imperfections. Oh, I'm such a terrible. Like a barista who pushes a latte across the table to a customer, and the customer's, wow, I can't believe you did that. Latte art, that's amazing. And they say, yeah, well, it's not my best work. I'm kind of like cut through was a little bit off, and but I'm working on it, so I hope you enjoy it. And the customer feels now very like, maybe I should be sad too. I feel like I've been disallowed from enjoying this thing. People all know that they're imperfect because perfection is an illusion. It's a thing that we try to give ourselves as a aspirational thing that we feel is necessary, or else we're going to fall into laziness. But I don't think that's the case if we have something to replace it with, which is, no, we're in progress. And progress is an appropriate replacement for perfection. Progress towards what? Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we're like, well, could it be a little bit better? That's not to say that we want to take away from how good it actually is now, but if we can improve upon it, well, certainly we would, and we owe it to be our business and our baristas to be curious about better ways to manage, better ways to schedule, better ways to do these things, but not with such desperation or crisis of identity to pretend like what we're doing now is just anathema to excellence. Is oh, we hate what we do right now. No, what you're doing right now is probably pretty good. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of things that need to be worked on. And yeah, there are plenty of opportunities to improve. But we take small, imperfect steps forward together. We can celebrate our progress and recognize those things as we go. That's sustainable. That's sustainable. And then you look back at your progress in retrospect, you see, wow, I can't believe we got that far. I wouldn't even know how to get to where we've already got to. We couldn't have planned that. All we did was we apprenticed ourselves and disciplined ourselves to the moment. We had some goals, but we didn't disallow ourselves from enjoying the journey in this together. And some of the best brands out there have this great balance between the aspirational, the goals, and the excellence, and the studied pursuit of enjoying the present and you know the imperfect steps forward that create great great results. So anyway, small imperfect steps forward, that's what you need. Don't try to reinvent yourself 100% next year. You probably can't, because none of us can. We can't do that. We need to evolve. In a business, we'll do that too. In fact, the last thing I'll say about imperfect steps forward is we learn how to make better steps as we take the imperfect ones. When I work with clients and we do some coaching on after an assessment, for example, I've got several clients I'm working on this right now where I was in their store and we saw a bunch of stuff and we're like, hey, here's some awesome stuff that's happening. Here's some not awesome stuff that's happening. Let's work on this stuff that's not awesome. Let's reinforce the awesome. And, as we work on that, expect it to take a while because things just take time to settle in and adjust. You can't snap your fingers and make things different. Okay, so my last thing for you is flexibility. This is another mindset. Blessed are the flexible, for they will not break. That is what a forgotten beatitude. But yes, flexibility, rigidity. There are certain non-negotiables that you got. There's always going to be those, and we need those. Honestly, we do. We need boundaries. We need standards. Where we can be flexible, though, is in the means of achievement. You can provide, and I think this is a great thing to think about, is people have ideas and your staff are constantly kind of thinking about the work that they're doing. So there are efficiencies, there are tools, there are methodologies that they're dreaming up. Now, we've all been baristas probably in this audience, and you know that there has been a time where you thought, if we just did this differently here, then it would achieve it would be so much better. I know that the boss wants us to have really great hospitality or great quality. We don't dial in the espresso very well. We know what the standards are, but here's an idea to actually do that better or to achieve that goal more quickly or efficiently or with less strain and stress on the body, that kind of stuff. Better workflow. Now, flexibility is necessary in this situation to take that feedback about that work and employ it without being threatened. I think a lot of inflexibility that comes in leadership is based on the idea that if we allow change or we shift the way we do something, even though the result is the same or better, that it means we have failed because we should have all the answers. We should have the perfect methodologies. And it was born from my mind, then it's good. If it was born from your mind, then it's probably not good. And that's how I achieve security as a leader. And that's not leadership. That's dictatorship. That's pride, and whatever else you want to call it. It's just not great leadership. So you got to rely on and allow for some changes as you go from the collective, even just from your own self too. Like if you get forced between if you're in a rock and a hard place, you've got a very specific way that you like to do things, but somebody forces you to do it in a different way. Now, you can do that begrudgingly. You can do it with a bad attitude, or you can do it in a way that is like, well, what's the end goal of this? Who is it for? Why am I doing this work? Not the how of the work is the meaning of the work. The how of the work isn't necessarily, it's important, but it's not always the thing that anchors the meaning. So if you have to make drinks a different way, or if you have to cater coffee a different way because something broke and you have a replacement for it. I've done this before where, boy, did I have a bad attitude because the way that I wanted to set something up in an event was ruined because they didn't let me know about some power limitation or a space limitation, and so now we've got to do that. But my mind is like, I had this idea of the way I wanted it to look, the way I wanted us to work, but you got to get rid of that. You have to think of what is the ultimate goal here, and what's a plan A, plan B, and what is the plan that we will accept if we can make it work to achieve the goal that we could never think of. It will present itself to you. You've got to think on your feet. And instead of just plopping your butt down on the ground like a little kid and be like, no, I'm just going to do it my way. I'm just going to sit here and pout. No, anyone who's worked in farmers markets or in mobile coffee, I think you all know things don't go your way. In the cafe, the same thing is the case where you're limited. Anyone who did coffee through the pandemic, boy, do you know. When we were setting up, because I was working part-time as a barista through the pandemic too. And, that was not the most fun. But guess what? We did it. And the reason why is because we wanted to serve coffee, good coffee, to people. And that's what we did. That's what your business is about, isn't it? We did it with smiles and good attitudes. Well, smiles under the mask, most of the time. But the point is, we had to have sort of a North Star that, you know, allows us to shift trajectories to get there. Life's going to throw all sorts of stuff at you. You're not going to have all of the time you want. When I became a father, I used to be able to take hours and hours of time and do all this work or focus in and think about something for a while and actually like finish the thought. Not anymore. Not even now. Like I'm as I record this, I'm by myself in the house, but you know, this is kind of a luxury at this point. But especially in the toddler years, it's just, boy, you still have the same expectations of work, but you've got to shift the way you work. Now you've got 10-minute intervals where you got to just get in there, do that thing, and get out and go back and do it again 30 minutes later until you just piece it together. So be flexible. Don't be about like my way or the highway. Well, this is how I work. And if I can't work like this and I can't work at all, we would not accept that, I think, from other people that we depended upon. If you're a boss and you have baristas and managers and they came to you like that, you'd think, I wish they would be a little bit more flexible. And we can work together to find a way around problems. In fact, constraints create more opportunity for creativity. And sometimes these constraints provide us some kind of an idea because we enter with a good attitude into a creative state that opens up maybe another market for us. How many more people after the pandemic were serving ready to drink lattes in bottles? You know, it opened up another revenue source for a lot of people that they didn't think that they would never would have thought to do it, because they were fine doing what they were doing, but now they're doing that and it added revenue. For some people that was really helpful, and we got really creative because we needed to be creative. So flexibility. Go into 2026, think about what the goal is, think about excellence, and consider all that we've talked about today. Be patient, have long term focus. You have to have this mindset where you regularly reflect on what's going on, all the facets and the big picture as well of your business and yourself and this culture that you have in your cafe. Also, you have to be accountable, pursue accountability, and the small, imperfect steps forward. This mindset also leads you to be a lot more flexible in the way that you seek to achieve excellence in the coffee shop. So I think that's all I have to say about this. And I hope that it was helpful. So if you have any more thoughts, always feel free to comment on the YouTube video, comment on the reel on Instagram, share these things when you have the opportunity. But yeah, just some stuff on my mind that I was thinking maybe a good idea to put out there at the end of the year. And I know, you know what? The year is going to be what we make it. And so let's make it a great one. And let me know if you have any questions, comments, or feedback. It's chris@keystotheshop.com. And I can't wait to hear from you about consulting, coaching, or anything else. Let's have a conversation. And as always, I hope this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.